Hello book lovers, my name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. Today I want to talk about all the books that I read in October, but first I'd like to discuss what I am reading at the moment. I'm reading the ebook copy of Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I'm really enjoying it. I love T. Kingfisher. She's one of my favorite authors, so I'm not even surprised. And I am drinking regular coffee with pumpkin spice creamer. This is just an effect with the cup. This is just like a color changing cup. It's not that pale. The cup is originally blue and it like turns this color. I like a lot of cream in my coffee, but I don't like quite that much. So, I read over 31 books in October, which was my goal, yes. But while I was doing that, I didn't recall the fact that whenever I do something like that, it takes forever to film my wrap-up video for that month. So basically, my goal is to just say the name of the book, say the name of the author, my rating, and maybe like a quick opinion of the book. No rants though. I'm not allowing myself any rants. I am also not going to be listing this in any particular order. I'm just kind of reading it off of Goodreads. Like, wherever I put it in on Goodreads, that's where I'm reading it off. The first book is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, the translator of which was Geoffrey Trousselot. I gave it 4 stars because I really liked it and it hurt me deeply. The first story was not great, but all the rest of them, you know, hit me right here, and I loved it. Apparently that is part of a series, so I'm going to have to look up the other books. The next book that I read was more of a novella. It was Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. Sorry, I had to make sure I was saying that right. That's just, I've never heard the name Dathan anywhere else. But I gave this one 3 stars. It was good. It made me feel a lot, but the actual composition was not great. I feel like it should have been written out more thoroughly. The next book that I read was Verity by Colleen Hoover. I still have no idea how this book even ended up in my little pumpkin on my list, basically, for my TBR. No idea how it ended up in there. It ended up not being the worst thing in the world. I think I gave it a 3.5, so higher than Pen Pal. It definitely had problematic elements, and some of the writing was not great. I would have liked to have seen a lot more character development. The ending, though, that did get me, which is why I got a 3.5, because I was sitting there like, that's unfortunate, but in a good way. Looking at this now, I really should have kind of sorted things out, but we're already going, so we're just gonna deal with what we have, okay? Some of the books that I read in October were not part of my initial TBR. They were either arcs that I was assigned to read and asked to review, or they were just books that I picked up and decided to read on my own. One of the arcs that I read was a children's book named Happy Stories for Nature Lovers by Dawn Casey and Dominique Surfatine, I believe is how you pronounce the name. And it was a delightful children's book, basically about protecting the environment. I never know how to rate children's books, honestly, because I love them. I love children's books. They're all amazing. Well, not all, obviously, but just, I love them inherently. But yes, go ahead, 10 out of 10. That's right, we're doing an out of 10 now. Bumped it up for the children's books. But yeah, I'd say that it's great for elementary age. I would not go for middle grade at all, like young elementary schoolers. I will go ahead and lump the next 4 together because they're all from the same universe and by the same author. It's the Frog and Toad books by Arnold Lober. Frog and Toad All Year, Frog and Toad Together, Days with Frog and Toad Are Friends. basically what happened was my husband and I watched a YouTube video about the author of these books, and it was basically a deep dive on them. My stepdaughter had never heard of them and immediately fell in love. She didn't read a lot when she was younger, but she's slowly getting into it now, and she is really into illustrating, especially like cute cottagecore based like illustrations, so this was right up her alley, and she kind of fell in love with it, and yeah, we just ended up reading them all. 20 out of 10, because the score is made up and the points don't matter. The next book that I read was These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. I gave it a 4-star review. This one had a twist that probably was not meant to be much of a twist. It was probably very obvious to other people, but I did not want it to be true, so I stayed blind and I was angry about it, but in a good way. I really enjoyed this book, and I think a lot of people in like the young adult, maybe to middle grade range would really enjoy it. It's witchy, sapphic, all good things. I promised that I read things other than children's books, though I'm just now realizing how many of them I did read in October. That's not the only thing that put me over the top of my goal, thankfully. Otherwise, I'm sure that I would be getting some shit. But yeah, the next book is What Grandmas Can't Do by Douglas Wood and Doug Cushman. Adorable. I loved everything about this. I discovered this while my stepdaughter and I were looking for the Frog and Toad books, like physical books, at a local bookstore, and it's cute from start to finish. And now I have an emotional connection to it because while we were reading the book, my stepdaughter was like, "Why did they make a whole book about you?" Because I'm known as being the grandma friend. So yeah, thanks, Eliza. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to rate these, I guess. It's another kid's book, so, 50 out of 10. I don't know. The next book that I read was Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foody. What a cool name, right? I gave it somewhere between 3.5 and 4 stars. I believe I finally landed on 4 stars because it had just so many creative, unique ideas that you don't see. You don't see a lot of books with new, unique ideas that are completely fresh. And this one had so many of them. I just feel like she kind of struggled a little bit figuring out how to use those ideas in some places. I did really enjoy this book. I just would have liked to have seen it, better developed. The next book was The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I gave it 2 stars, and that was generous. I wanted to give it 1, but this should have been a short story. The first, I think, 60 pages of it could have been a serviceable short story. It still would have frustrated me. It absolutely would have. I still would have hated the narrator. He is despicable. I hate him completely. I'm going to try not to rant about this. I feel myself working up to it, but yes, it should have stayed a short story, and I would not have hated it as much, but it kept going and kept going past the point where it had nothing else to say. But yes, that's where I'm leaving it. 2 stars was almost 1. Almost. The next book, however, was on the opposite end of that spectrum. The Swallow, A Ghost Story by Karis Cotter. I believe that's how you pronounce their name. That's how I've been pronouncing it this whole time, so let's hope. But yes, I gave this one 5 stars. This one, I don't know if it would be considered a kid's book. I don't think it would. It would be more like in the middle grade range, I feel like. I don't know. At any rate, I loved it, start to finish. It is both adorable and spooky and also hurt me deeply, put it in a good way. And it's super atmospheric, and I loved it. I don't know what to tell you. The 2 main characters are 2 little girls. They're very different, yet very similar. And yeah, I love them both. They're wonderful. I want to read it again. Okay, so I'm going to try my best not to rant about this next one. It is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. if you watch my vlog, you know, for this book, then you know that I had a lot of feelings. It got 2 stars as well, I believe. Maybe 1.5. One of them got a 1.5, one of them got a 2. They were the same video. But yes, I did not like this. I did not like it at all. I didn't think that it was very good. I had a lot of issues with it. If you decide that you are going to read this book, please, please, please look up the trigger warnings first. That's all I'm gonna say. And I think that's it for like the worst of October. I'm pretty sure everything else is uphill from that point. This next book was another ARC, and also another children's book called Welcome to Pandorient, by just Carbone. Carbone is the only author that was listed. It is from an upcoming series called the Music Box series, and it was good, but it needs some editing. Let me see, what did I give it? I forget what I gave it. Okay, I gave it like a 3.5 or a 4. But yes, definitely needs some editing. There was a lewd picture which snuck through, which seems quite problematic. But yes, otherwise it was good. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. It felt like this next book was just like tailored to me specifically. It's The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. I gave this 5 stars without even really having to think about it. I was worried going in that it was going to end up being super sappy, just focused on the romance, and that didn't end up being the case. Yes, there is romance involved. No, that's not the overall plot. That being said, there's nothing wrong with romance. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with romance. That is not what I went into this book wanting, though. And I got everything that I wanted. Delightful, wonderful, 5 out of 5, 100 out of 100, whatever score you want to give it. I love it. This next book is Price Guide to the Occult by Leslie Walton. This is one that I had been wanting to read for a while now. I believe I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was quite a good book, but not quite in the, like, new favorite book of all time category. It was either a 3.5 or a 4. It's always a little dubious because, you know, you don't, on Goodreads, you can't give things a half star. Looking back on it now, it feels more like it's in the 3.5 range, though. Not that it's bad, it's not bad at all. It just really didn't live up to the hype. Okay, I lied. There's one more 2-star review for the month of October. It was Jokes to Offend Men by Allison Kelly, Danielle Kreis, Kate Herslin, and Isabel Yates. And it was just a compilation of, you know, jokes to offend men. I mean, I thought it was a good premise, but I didn't like how it was carried out. I didn't think that it was done in a tactful way. It was very hit or miss, and it wasn't funny at all. Like, I barely chuckled. So yeah, unfortunate, but not all of them are gonna be winners. The next book, however, it's another ARC, The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. This was a 4-star, a solid 4-star, maybe 4.5. It told a story based around La Llorona, and yes, I quite enjoyed it. It had a lot to say about generational trauma, and ended up being quite a poignant read, and I would recommend it. The next book that I read was The Fireman by Joe Hill. It was not bad. It was fine. It was... Parts of it were really good. There were parts that I honestly really didn't like. And it balanced out to fine. I gave it 3 stars. It was honestly kind of disappointing because Joe Hill, like, he wrote Nosferatu, and Nosferatu is just like one of my favorite books. But any of the books that I've read by him after that have yet to, like, capture the magic of Nosferatu again. Just, I don't know. Maybe he's a one-hit wonder. I have no idea. The next book is Sheets by Brenna Thumler. It was a graphic novel. Initially I gave it a 4-star, but looking back on it, I think I might give it more of like a 3.5 because it didn't leave as much of an impression on me as I thought it would. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't, you know, earth-shattering. I probably will forget that it existed, like, at all in the next month or so. So I just noticed that one of the books that I read was removed from my read shelf on Goodreads, and I have no idea how that happened because this was one of my absolute favorite ones. It's The Haunting of Evelyn Jones by Phil Hicks. I gave it 5 stars. It is just like super atmospheric and just perfect for the fall, particularly October. I really enjoyed it. It has ghosts, it has this creepy old, you know, beach town. It also has an old bookstore, like this old dusty bookstore, which is just like one of my favorite things. Give me 5 stars to be precise. The next book is another graphic novel. It's Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. This one honestly really disappointed me. I didn't expect it to at all. I had high expectations because everyone is always raving about this book. But I ended up just giving it like 3 stars, I believe. It wasn't bad. I'm not saying that it was bad. And it's super atmospheric, great for this time of year, just for that specifically. But yeah, I expected a lot more. It's kind of lauded for its LGBTQIA plus rep, and I just didn't see a lot of it there. Like, it was fine. It was cute. Just like, I have complaints, but my complaints would spoil things. So we're not going to talk about those. This next one made me so happy. It's Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I had forgotten that this was on like my TBR completely and what it was, and whenever I figured it out, like looked it up, I was just elated, overjoyed. I love stuff like this. It's a series of short stories, basically little folk tales that take place in the universe of the other books that she's written, the Grishaverse. And yes, I loved every single one. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. This next one is just Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. It's a reread. I reread it every year around, you know, October, November. One of my favorite books in existence. Honestly, I can't even explain why. It's just a very, like, gothic book with trash people who kind of all get what they deserve, so yeah. I honestly wasn't entirely sure how to rate this next book. It's called His Name is George Floyd, One Man's Life and the Struggle for Racial Justice. On one hand, yes, a very important topic, and I do believe that people should know more about George Floyd, but on the other hand, I feel like it's kind of a dicey topic. Like, I worry that they were trying to capitalize on the suffering of George Floyd's family, you know? So I technically, like, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, but it really kind of depends on the intentions of the person who wrote this book. This next book was another nonfiction novel. It's Medusa's Gaze and Vampires by the Science of Monsters by Matt Kaplan. I had such a good time with this one, partially just goofing around with the illustrations and photos that they used. But also just with the text in general. I love horror movies and monster movies and stuff like that, and just every new chapter I was like, ah, heck yeah, Frankenstein or whatever. I don't think they even covered Frankenstein. But yes, just, you know, zombies, dinosaurs, whatever. And every chapter was something new, and I enjoyed every single bit of it. The next book is the first in the All Souls series, I believe. I don't think it's a trilogy. I think it's a series. A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was not bad, but at any rate, parts of it were quite good, but I had really high expectations going in, and I kind of wanted more than I got. I am kind of thinking that I'll go on to read the sequels at this point. At first I wasn't sure, but my curiosity is kind of been piqued, so yeah, I think I'm gonna go on to read the other ones in this series. This next book was another 5-star, and it hit me completely out of the blue. These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. I did not expect to love this book quite as much as I did, but I did. It's, you know, it has ghosts that are somehow not ghosts. It has a haunted house that's somehow not a haunted house. It has a sapphic romance and great queer representation. Yeah, I can't even explain it. I loved every bit of this, start to finish. I'm just a sucker for a haunted house tale, I guess, maybe. I don't know. This next book is another graphic novel. It's Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This one was surprisingly pretty unsettling and spooky in a good way. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I loved some of the illustrations. They were unsettling without, you know, pushing it too far. And all of the stories were really creative, and, you know, they were short, but, you know, succinct and effective. We're getting closer. There are only 3 books left that I read in October. This next book is another nonfiction. It's a memoir by Hannah Gadsby called 10 Steps to Nanette. I believe I gave it 4 stars as well, maybe 4.5. No, it was definitely 4, because I felt like it kind of dragged on in some places, you know, which isn't entirely an issue, but I feel weird rating memoirs or anything like that in general, because it's just like, this is their life. Who am I to sit here and rate their life? But yeah, it was a good book. I actually have physical copies now of these 2 books. I don't know why I didn't hold them up, but of His Name is George Floyd and 10 Steps to Nanette. I just got used to posting the pictures up, I guess. But yes, I accidentally spilled coffee on the bottoms, as you can see. And these were brand new books. These were brand new books. I was the first person to read either of these books, so I ended up just having to buy them from the library. So now I own them. So I'm glad that I liked them. I'm going to basically go back and read them at a more leisurely pace closer to the end of the year, when I'm a little less stressed about reading goals. I'm kind of not sure how this next book ended up on my radar at all. I think maybe what happened was I didn't realize that it was written by the person that it was, but it's Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, and I had kind of avoided TJ Klune because of The House by the Cerulean Sea, I think is what it's called, which had some questionable stuff going on, was based on some questionable stuff, rather. This book was certainly fine, though. Gave it like a 3, maybe a 2.5. It was fine. It wasn't bad. There were some very whimsical moments. I thought it had some cool things to say about death, you know, cool representations. But some of it, like a lot of it was just very mid, you know. It's fine. And that leaves us with the very last book that I read in October, The Atlas 6 by Olive E. Blake. It was a solid, like, 3-star, 3.5-star read. And I hate to say that because this book is so very popular, but it is also too long. And just so much of it is just waiting for things to happen. Like, it could have been half the length that it was, honestly. Like, and I'll go ahead and say I read the Atlas Paradox, and it had less of an issue. I think I rated it like a point higher because it was less of an issue in that one. But it still suffered from that a little bit. I don't know if Olivia Blake is a new writer, if this was like a debut for her, but yeah, this definitely needed some more editing, some more trimming, because there's just so much dead, empty space going on, basically, the equivalent of that. That being said, I did actually enjoy it, especially after reading the Atlas Paradox. I'm quite intrigued to see where the series is going to go from there. But that is it for my October reading wrap up. I think that ended up being around 33 books or so. I'm not positive. Let me know if my math is off. I hope that you're all doing well and staying safe out there, and that you all enjoyed your Halloween. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your fall though, and have a good time as you gather with your families. If you feel like liking and sharing and subscribing and all of that, go ahead. I'd appreciate it, but you're under no obligation. What's most important is that you do love yourself. Please.